How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here, and we have so much to break down in our latest Big Mets update segment, that being June 7th, 2025, and this comes the night after the Mets took Game 1 of a multi-game set against the Colorado Rockies in Denver. So if you guys did not check out our past night's post-game show, I implore you to do that after watching this one, as we broke down everything that transpired innings 1 through 9 in that late-night game on the East Coast, headlined by the Polar Bear and Francisco Lindor. Broken pinky toe and all, Lindor stepping up. Ronnie Mauricio had himself a ball that would have been a home run in every other ballpark outside of Colorado for the most part, and Kodai Senga was as advertised. The bullpen did what they needed to do. A lot of positives from this past night's victory, folks, because today in our Big Mets update segment, we have to talk about more of the trade front, because yes, just 48 hours ago, as we broke down a video on Cedric Mullins, make sure to check it out in case you guys haven't already, as the Mets have been linked to him as a potential trade target. Well, they've also been connected to a degree with Mr. Jarren Duran, a player that I know a lot of you Mets fans are interested in acquiring via trade. So we're going to break down who is Jarren Duran, what is there to know about his game, his contract, and everything in between. What's the likelihood, unlikelihood of a Jarren Duran trade happening leading up to the MLB trade deadline, and what are the current reports connecting Duran to the New York Mets? That is what we'll get into. From there, we're going to expand more on the Polar Bear and his dominance, and Pete Alonso, not only the tremendous season he's had at this point, but specifically over the past 7+ games, he's been on the absolute tear. We're going to break down why exactly that is. We're also going to talk about the schmuck in media, which is, yes, Mr. Michael Kay. Michael Kay of Yes Network had more choice words to say about Mets fans, specific Mets fans, who have been rather outspoken on his remarks going back to that Juan Soto return to the Bronx a couple weeks ago. He still has it living rent-free in his head, even for a man who finds himself on the high horse looking at all of us Mets fans as lessers. We're going to expand on that, along with what is happening in the farm with guys like Zach Thornton and Mr. Brandon Sproat, two very exciting pitching prospects for the Mets, and two of which looked fantastic in their latest outings that will break down our latest farm report from Port St. Lucie all the way up to AAA Syracuse. So sit back, relax, get yourself comfortable for what is going to be the ride here for a big Mets discussion. Thank you guys kindly for smashing a like and subscribe on, as well as you first chime in the live show, and let me know all your initial reactions in the comments down below to what we have to break down today. And as always, shout out to our amazing sponsors here at SeatGeek that have you covered for all of your ticketing needs. Folks, you know the drill by now if you've been following the platform, but in case you don't, let me enlighten you. SeatGeek, the #1 rated ticketing app in the game today for a reason, with over 70,000 active events to choose from. So whether you want Mets tickets, concert show tickets, comedy show tickets, you name it, SeatGeek has you covered for all of your ticketing needs. And what I love so much about SeatGeek, which is why we're so happy to have them here as a season-long sponsor throughout the entire course of 162 here, folks, take a look at the following that you guys will see beside me. This is our grading scale. 1 through 10, red to green. What that means is if you're looking for tickets more in the grading scale of 1 through 5 in the red, it's not a good bang for your buck, and you should seek tickets elsewhere there in the SeatGeek app. If you see tickets beside me that you see in the 7 to 10 range in the green, then it's a great bang for your buck, and you should go out your way to seek those tickets in the SeatGeek app. So they're fair and honest, and that's certainly one of the many aspects I love about SeatGeek. Their app is so easy to utilize, everybody. So again, if you want to save some dollars on your next ticket purchase, what are you waiting for, everybody? Make sure to head over to our great friends at SeatGeek that have you covered with everything on the ticketing front. And all you guys need to do is to click that link down below in the description, utilize our promo code WARDY10 for 10% off your next ticket purchase, and shout out to our great friends at SeatGeek for making it happen as an amazing sponsor here on the platform. But as we hop back into this one, everybody, let's start off today's discussion by getting into Mr. Polar Bear himself and Pete Alonso, because Pete Alonso has been on an absolute tear. We're going to go from in order, just so you guys know, and I will timestamp this too. We're going to start with Alonso. Then from Alonso, we're going to go on to Jarren Duran. From Jarren Duran, we're going to go on to Sean Manaea. From Sean Manaea, we're going to talk a little bit on the Michael Kay fiasco, and then we'll get back more in the prospect front on Brandon Sproat and Zach Thornton. That way you guys know, in case you don't know how to follow along with timestamps, Wardy's got you covered, don't worry. But let's first begin this discussion with a man who's not only tearing the cover off the baseball, but something that he's been doing pretty consistently all season long, guys. Let's talk about the greatness, which has certainly been, as of late, the Polar Bear himself and Mr. Pete Alonso, because as you guys can see, and I apologize, I clicked the wrong highlight there for a second. As we can see here, guys, Pete Alonso in his past 7 games has been an absolute menace. He is 10 for his last 27. He has 4 home runs, 14 RBIs, a 370 average, and a just under 1,400 OPS. And mind you, 3 of these 4 home runs came against the LA Dodgers. The man is an absolute menace. He's a beyond beast. And funny enough, Alonso was actually in an interview right before we saw this series began against the Dodgers there with Mookie Betts on Bleacher Report. And shout out to my friends at Bleacher Report. For those that don't know, I do MLB-wide topics. I cover for them live in the Bleacher Report app Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right around 5 p.m. Eastern each week, even though the times do vary from time to time, given my conflicting schedule, among others. But guys, the Polar Bear, absolutely raking, and there's a couple things to make note of with the latest Terry's on. Because mind you, Alonso's batting right around 300 this year with it just under 1,000 OPS. So what he's doing over the past 7 games is pretty much just further reaffirming kind of what he's been doing all season long. But there's a couple things that are notable that I would love to highlight, and they are the following. Alonso had his longest stretch of his career when it went from one home run to the next, about, I believe, at least 16 or 17 games that we saw there entering the month of May. It took Pete a while to finally find that home run swing and get himself in a groove the way that he certainly wanted to be for this New York Mets team. But now we're seeing the Polar Bear finally starting to blast off, and he's blasting off not only pulling baseballs, but opposite field. And this is something that I've been preaching for a very long time, and I will continue to do so. The best thing getting the Polar Bear out of his game is getting him to hit for all fields. He hit for opposite field tanks, going up the middle, opposite field doubles, a drive and runs late in ball game. Again, what hasn't Alonso done, especially as of late? In that huge 4-game set in LA, Pete Alonso certainly wasn't for the lack of effort on his end. The same way in game 1 in Colorado against those Rockies, he rips himself a huge double that we saw in the gap that led to some more RBIs for this New York Metropolitan team. So yeah, Pete Alonso not only has, I believe 13 home runs at least on the season, as well as 57 RBIs. He is now just, if I'm not mistaken, 1 home run shy of tying David Wright for second most all-time on the Mets home run leaderboard. Only trailing the GOAT there, Mr. Dale Strawberry. Again, if memory serves me correct. Then you add in the fact that Alonso is currently looking like one of the true best bats in all the National League consistently. This is not just something he's doing this season, everybody. This is something that he's been doing, and I apologize. This is not just something that he's been doing this past week. He's been doing this all season long. All season long. Yes, he had that little stretch where he's cooled off a little bit, and naturally the Polar Bear is going to cool off a little bit from time to time. That's normal for a guy like him who's known as literally the Polar Bear. Cue the corny dad jokes here from your guy Wardy. But in all seriousness, Pete Alonso is looking unbelievably good, and the fact that he's been able to hit these pitches, especially down and away for opposite field, that has really what separated himself. It reminds me so much of the 2022 Alonso, hitting them where they ate, beating the shift opposite field especially, or in the case of now, just getting, again, sliders down away, fastballs away, not a problem. He is going to make you pay. Shout out to Juan Soto as well for getting down on his knee to try to help Alonso slide in home the way they did yesterday in the Mets 4-2 victory in game 1 against the Colorado Rockies. But I would love to hear from you Mets fans in the comments down below. What has been most impressive to you about Pete Alonso's roaring hot start to the season, but specifically what we're seeing going opposite field, hitting them where they ain't, again, taking advantage of the bum and Mr. Jose Urena, former Mets legend from earlier this season, if you know, you know. Batting practice is what we saw in LA, and that continued to a degree there in Colorado against those Rockies. Hopefully that continues to be the case all weekend long here for the Mets as they look to secure yet another series victory for the team that is now currently, and yes, I'm very excited to say this, everybody, the New York Mets are 40-24 on the season. Why does that hold so much value? It not only holds so much value as it's night and day from what the Mets were this time a year ago, but it also holds value in the sense that the Mets are the first team in all the National League to hit 40 victories on the season. You got to be feeling pretty good if you're a Mets fan. I know I am, and I know you guys are too. And the best part of it all is, I think we're kind of getting spoiled with the fact that we're north of 20 games above 500, so much so that I feel like at times we're not appreciating some of these big wins as much as what we otherwise should for what they are. But we're getting so much great offense early into the season. We're getting so much things clicking, even with the runner in scoring position woes having mounted every single game. It still hasn't changed the fact that the Mets are really, really good. And they're still waiting in the wings for Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea, Jesse Winker, Jose Siri, among others that we're going to expand on here a little bit later in the show, folks. But I'm feeling pretty good about this Mets team. And even in their losses, how many of their losses are more of them shooting themselves in the foot than it is the team being better? Between the Dodgers series split, the freaking series split against the Nationals there in DC was the same exact thing. You blew everything in the 8th or 9th inning, and then that's how they rally back. Otherwise, the boys should have won at minimum 3 out of 4 in this series. So I can go on a complete TED Talk tangent, if you will. Wardy's famous for these things when getting happy about my boys. But the point is that at 40-24, there's still a lot more to be had this season. There's a lot more work to be done, and you have to feel good saying that as a fan, because you know we still have yet to reach the maximum potential, what this team is expected to be throughout the course of the 162. And look at him smiling, Juan Soto. Look how happy he is. He's so happy to be here. Just don't tell Mr. Michael K, aka the schmuck that he is, to suggest otherwise. But before we talk about Michael K, let's talk about why you probably clicked on this video, everybody, because there's a solid chance you clicked on this video because you want to know what is going on, Wardy. I want the Mets to make some big splashes leading up to the MLB trade deadline, and I would love the New York Mets to land a Cedric Mullins, or if they're not going to land a Cedric Mullins, Wardy, I personally would love if they would find themselves picking up a player like this. And in case you guys don't know what exact player I'm referring to, give your guy Wardy a hot second to explain exactly who I'm talking about today, because that is going to be, yes, Mr. Jarren Duran of the Boston Red Sox. Now, I know the Duran talk has started over the past couple of days. I mean, it's really started the past week and a half plus with the unfortunate free fall, which has been the Red Sox, especially with Alex Bregman down with injury. They have really not been performing nearly to the degree that they would otherwise hope. And expand more as to what Jarren Duran is and what the Mets would be potentially getting in the veteran, and I should say young veteran outfielder for this Mets team. Let's talk about it, everybody, because, yes, I know the Jarren Duran discussion kind of started a couple days ago. The same way I dropped my video on Cedric Mullins is the same way that I know my guys, Mark and James, had a little bit of discussion on Jarren, and they certainly provided some solid points, and I agree with them on playing them. And to further expand as to the pros and cons of Jarren Duran, let's first start with where all this reporting initially stems from, because at the time of these previous Duran discussions happening, it was nothing more than just hearsay and connecting the dots how, oh, the Mets are going to be the outfielder market. Jarren Duran makes sense because he's one of the better outfield options that the Mets could consider. Fast forward 24 hours later, we heard Jon Heyman in his latest podcast there with Joel Sherman of the New York Post. And as a fellow New York Post sports contributor, shout out to them as always. And this is what Jon Heyman and them had to say. They did say that, yes, the Mets are expected to be in the outfield market. And yes, Jarren Duran looks like a player that very well could present himself as a fit for this New York Mets team if he hasn't already. Now, what is there to know about Jarren Duran? Great question, everybody, because as you see from his numbers down below, in 64 games this season, 302 plate appearances, the 28-year-old left-handed hitting outfield bat who can play center, left, and right without a problem, so he can play all over the outfield rather, I should say. 36 runs scored, 4 home runs, 35 RBIs on the season, just 60 games in the year, 13 stolen bags, a 274 average, a 328 on base, and a 430 slug for a 1.3 WAR and 8% above league average as a batter. In comparison with his entire career, Duran has himself 38 home runs, 177 RBIs, and just 417 career games at this point at the time of recording this video. 80 stolen bags. Let's not forget the stolen base element. He already has 13 this season, well on his way to a 25 to 30 home runs, not home run, but rather stolen bag season. 177 RBIs, 80 stolen bags, a 272 average, a 326 on base, and a 452 slug. So funny enough, what Duran is doing right now for the Red Sox is very much in line with what you can expect him to do. There isn't a drastic dip, nor is there this drastic increase to suggest that, oh, he's going to fall off a cliff and come back to reality. No. Duran is playing pretty much at the level you'd expect him to play for the majority of the season if you are the New York Mets. Specifically, when we also look at, not just the contact ability, but the on-base ability and the slugging, it's right in around the same wheelhouse. So I think what you guys are seeing right now stat-wise is more of what you should be expecting to see and get from a guy in Jarren Duran, potentially at the major league level this season. Now, let's get into a couple noticeable factors when we evaluate Jarren Duran, and it does start with the following. Jarren Duran, how much sense does he make to this Mets team? And that is a great point, everybody. And to expand more on Duran, let's just take a look at his Savant numbers here. And I'm just going to pull up, this was from the Mets game this past night. So let's get rid of this and let's go over here. And I always think Duran has 2 R's, even though it's just 1 at the end. Always getting messed up because he has 2 R's in Jarren, so I think that's why your boy Wardy's getting a little cooked here. But as you guys can see from the Baseball Savant numbers so far this season from Jarren Duran, they are as follows. He's in the 82nd percentile that receiving and batting run value. He's in the 93rd percentile in base running value. He's in the 29th percentile in fielding run value, 51st then in xWOBA, 66th in expected batting average, 47th in expected slugging, 87th in average exit velocity. So again, tearing the cover off of baseball, averaging 92 plus, 44th percentile in the barrel percentage, 75th in the hard hit percentage, 45th in the sweet spot percentage, and 85th there in the bat speed percentage. Right around league average in squared up percentage, a little below league average in his whiff and chase rate, and his K percentage right around league average. He has been a great defender, hence the 18% outs above average, but he has played all over the place, and he's a speed demon. 93rd percentile, so another true base running and base stealing threat for you on the base pass. Solid arm strength and value, just again, not the best defender. Not shocked to see this. Duran profiles best, in my opinion, more as a corner outfield option than necessarily a center field option. He has a speed, but there's no denying that if the Mets acquired someone like Duran, especially to get, say, center field reps, the Mets would be lacking the defensive upside that they otherwise get in someone like Tyrone Taylor or Jose Siri, who have been beyond proficient in center field so far this season. So, guys, knowing that Duran is on a contract until the 2029 free agency period means that he is not going to come nearly as cheap as someone like Cedric Mullins. And this was in direct hand the point I was trying to make to you Mets fans initially when having this conversation, because we're going to talk more on Duran and Mullins and content that'll be dropping next week. We have a lot of trade related content that'll be coming out shortly on the platform outside of this video that you guys are currently watching, so be on the lookout for it. But one specifically is the fact that, listen, Duran is under contract until 2029. For as talented of a player as he is and how much upside he brings as another lefty bat option for this outfield, there is definitely upside. Do not get me wrong about it, especially a versatile guy that can play over the outfield. But here's the thing. With the current configuration of Nemo and left, making sure he stays healthy, Tyrone Taylor, once he's back, Jose Siri. Jeff McNeil has gotten some center field reps. Right field, obviously, is Juan Soto or bust. Sometimes Starling Marte will get a rep every now and then in left field or DH, but very limited opportunity. Jesse Winker should never play the outfield again after hurting himself on the first and only effing play he made in the outfield all season long. This point in St. Louis in the doubleheader. If you know, you know. Duran has a lot of qualities I like, and I like him as a player in general. I think he brings moxie. I think he brings elite base running. I think he brings a perfectly balanced element that I think could help get this team over the top from where they currently are. But between the lack of necessarily desperate positional need for the Mets, especially knowing he's going to be a bit more of a defensive liability in center than, say, Tyrone or Jose Siri, and knowing that Cedric Mullins is out there when, if we do this compare and contrast, Mullins has 10 home runs already on the season in a walk year, so you know he's already looking for the bag. 30 plus RBIs on the season, a lower average, but a more respectable slugging. He's been right around over 800 on the OPS this year. Again, you can make your fair cases for either. I think Duran has higher upside. I think Duran can bring more of this team long term, but in acquiring Duran, you're going to have to give up some more key pieces in the farm in doing so. If you're the Mets, are you comfortable giving up some key assets to the Boston Red Sox and trade for a younger Jarren Duran right now? Or would you rather give up less for something just as impactful, if not more impactful for the Mets on an immediate standpoint in Cedric Mullins? That is why, if you're asking me to compare and contrast, I like Mullins more based on the trade value alone. A guy on a rental contract at not even $9 million for the final year of his career is going to be far more easier, in my opinion, to acquire via trade based on what you have to give up less for than Jarren Duran, who's not a free agent until the 2029 offseason. And as good as Duran is, I don't really see these numbers, and they don't jump off the board enough to me to suggest that we should warrant giving up a farm type haul for what is a very exciting young controllable player. Yes, but I just don't think he moves the needle enough. In simple terms, I don't think Duran has separated himself enough from Cedric Mullins to warrant having a drastic overpay for someone like Duran at the deadline when you can get around the same production, if not better potentially, from Cedric Mullins down the stretch for this season alone. And if you want to bring back Mullins beyond the season, you worry about it in the offseason, but that's not something you're worried about now because you're stuck in a win now state. So that is what I personally have to say about Jarren Duran. I see all the pros and I see all the cons, and like I said, I love a lot of the aspects to his game, but I think it would be foolish if the Mets went out of their way and said, you know what, Jarren Duran is the only outfielder that we really got to go out of our way for. If you can land him at a price that won't be a premium, that's going to be a little bit cheaper, even with that team control on his contract, then I'm all ears, I'm all for it, but I will have to see it to believe it, Mets fans. You guys let me know in the comments down below, which player do you think is more feasible or more realistic for this team between Cedric Mullins and Jarren Duran? And secondly, what players out there in the trade market would you like to see the Mets land? Please let us know in the comments down below, as this will help out for future content, so that way I can further discuss players I know not only you Mets fans want to see happen, potentially get dealt here, but also have ties to the Mets in varying degrees, whether it's reported ties, whether it's ties in previous off seasons or trade deadlines, or just because they're New York natives and maybe they grew up a Mets fan. Whatever the story may be, I would love to hear all of your input in the comments down below, so please don't hesitate from doing exactly that, everybody. Because now, going from talking about Jarren Duran, let's talk about what is a positive on the Mets front. And when I say positive, I say it somewhat loosely, just because even though the results weren't there, you're happy because you're finally seeing some productive notion there on the front of, yes, Sean Manaea. So let's head over to see what is happening with Mr. Sean Manaea, everybody. And the best way to do that is to show you the following. All right, guys, as you guys can see, this was Sean Manaea's final line, his first rehab outing of the year that you guys can see beside me. Sean Manaea, and look at that little fly that somehow, some way just got over the camera lens for a second. I don't know if you guys noticed that in the highlights beside me, but there was a little fly right on the camera lens of whoever was recording at the game yesterday for Brooklyn facing the Blue Rocks. And Sean Manaea's first outing went 1.2 innings, 4 hits, 4 runs, 3 earned, 0 walks, 2 strikeouts, 36 pitches, and 26 of them were strikes. He also hit a batter, and 2 fielding errors were made behind him. So again, some bad fundamental baseball that you see in high A Brooklyn there for Sean Manaea. And there's that damn fly again, if you guys see what I'm talking about. But Sean Manaea didn't have the best first rehab outing, but that doesn't matter. This is the first time that he's really facing live batters in a game since going all the way back to his early ramp up in bullpen to begin spring training. This is really probably the most in-game work that we're probably seeing Sean Manaea get so far this year, with the exception of the little things that he did in spring training. So that's encouraging to say the least. I'm beyond excited to see the Simone Southpaw back in this Mets rotation. Let's not forget how impactful and how important Sean Manaea is to this Mets rotation. He was nails for us in the second half of last year when he made that proper arm slot change to look more like Chris Sale. The Mets were really getting the best out of him, especially Nasty utilizing that sinker upstairs there in the zone there, that sweeper down away, especially lefties, some of the best in the game. Sean Manaea quickly became a fan favorite last year once he made that arm slot adjustment and was nails, going 6-7 strong plus innings for the Mets. And every single start out there, we're looking forward to more of those quality starts, and we're just looking forward to having the Simone Southpaw and Sean Manaea back more than anything. That is the big news on the Manaea front, everybody. Not only is he back getting in-game action, but he's finding himself getting so close to returning to this New York Metropolitan team. Frankie Montas, who got beat up a little bit in his last rehab outing. We're going to talk more about Frankie after his next rehab outing, which I'm sure will either be happening this weekend or early next weekend. We'll go on from there. Obviously, the end goal for both Manaea and Montas is to get ramped up back to a starter level, which will mean that they're going to be looking anywhere from 75 to 90 plus pitches. And then that is when the Mets will make the proper evaluation adjustment and say, hey, we think you have done enough in your rehab stint. It's now time to call you up for the major leagues. And then when that happens, the Mets are going to have some really tough but good pitching decisions on their hands, because right now I think it goes without saying, Tyler McGill looks like a man slightly on the outside looking in for the rotation. Maybe you can make the argument that's going to be more Paul Blackburn, because even after Paulie Punchies went 5 shutty and dominated Shohei Ohtani when I was in attendance the other day there in LA at game 1 of the 4-game set against the Dodgers, I will say this: Blackburn was kind of an informed, and Carlos Mendoza did reaffirm even after his great game that he will be getting looks in the bullpen. So it does appear that the Mets are planning to shift Paul Blackburn and a more that sweet man reliever role to bring in Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas for this rotation. But with Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea both in this rotation, the Mets still have a logjam, because you have Manaea, Montas, Holmes, Peterson, Senga. That right there is your 5. Then you have Tyler McGill and Griffin Canning as your 6 and 7. You're not going with a 6-man rotation more than likely. So what are you going to do? It's the battle of Canning and it's the battle of McGill. And right now, Griffin Canning is winning that battle. No slight at all on McGill. He was dominant, retiring the final 16 of 17 batters he saw or so after giving up some early runs in LA in game 2 of that series, in which the Mets lost game 2 because not so much McGill, but more so on blowing it in the 9th inning that we saw yet again. And then they just couldn't handle as they got walked off there in extra innings. But McGill has been very sharp at times. We know that. Been a bit more inconsistent, however, than Canning and everyone else. And when the Mets pitching staff has been so consistent, as dominant as it has been so far this season, yeah, even a guy like Tyler McGill, who otherwise would be in a lot of teams, the top 3 or top 4 of the rotation, is kind of on the outside looking in right now, barring changes when Montas and Manaea are working back. You guys let me know in the comments down below, what is your presumed rotation configuration for this Mets team once both Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas return? But don't worry, once we find out more reports as to what's happening with them and their rehab starts, we'll break down that latest news for you guys on the platform as soon as we possibly can, just like we do with everything Metsland here throughout the course of the 162. But guys, let's go on from talking about Sean Manaea to now talking about a schmuck. You know, there's one big schmuck out there, and I love it. I use that word all the time. I use it as both an insult, I use it as a compliment, I use it for various things. It's just part of my lingo. Maybe that's, you know, the traditional, you know, Italian New York Wardy kicking in as someone who is mainly Italian and from New York. I just haven't resided there in a number of years, even though I wouldn't be opposed to going back. Just easier said than done nowadays. You guys know I love utilizing that word schmuck, and when I think of what is the best way to utilize it and describing one individual person, you know, there's one person that comes to mind better than most, and that is Mr. Michael Kay of Yes Network, because not only is Michael Kay continuing to go on this ridiculous tirade about how he's aligned Lion, and how every Mets fan who critiques him and his knowledge is an absolute flea. I mean, tell me you're insecure without telling me you're insecure. You'd imagine that a man, you know what, in his 60s now, whatever the hell Michael Kay is, that he would at least have the slightest backbone to not bat an eye to what he believes are fleas, yet he can't get them out of their head weeks after the fact of that series initially happening between the Mets and the Yankees. I got over it. I thought others got over it as well. I thought my guys Mark and James got over it a little bit too, but they baited him a little bit more next, and he took the bait to a degree. So we're going to talk more about that just here in a second, everybody, because that is not where the Michael Kay story ends. I'm going to play some audio for you, more of the same nonsense that Michael Kay stated north of 2 weeks ago on the platform that I played for you guys when we did that video of saying Michael Kay said what. It was me and Mark Luino, Giraffe Neck Mark, that many of you guys know, reacting to Michael Kay's just absurd north of 10-minute tirade, rant, and trying to undermine Mets fans like myself and like you guys just for sharing our respective opinion and maybe calling him out and saying, hey, you jumped the gun, you don't know what you're talking about, and that stands true. All these weeks later, it still stands true. I'm not saying what Michael was relayed from people within the Mets organization isn't factual in his eyes, but just because he was relayed something doesn't necessarily mean that that is the end-all be-all either. Something that's naturally hard for himself to comprehend because he's on this high horse, being in the industry for roughly 30 years, while he's never had to compete with people in the online space, because if he knows he had to do that, it would be a little bit of a different discussion. But guys, let's talk here on Michael Kay and what's going on with him, because he did in fact post the following this past day that I have to relay to each and every one of you. It's so insane that like it's very tempting to take part in, but at the same time, it's such little brother energy that I think we should just disregard it and let that be that after this. So, all right, guys, let's get rid of this. And now I'm going to show you guys something very important. Very, very important. All right, guys. Michael Kay posted this on X this past day. Before we get to the his face and everything he had to say there, you don't need to point at me or look at me that long, Michael. You're making me uncomfortable. Let's see what Michael Kay had to say in response to Mets fans. Again, mind you, this goes all the way back to the Juan Soto series in the Bronx, where Michael Kay was famously saying how he wanted to be a Yankee. His family was the only reason as to why he went to the Mets, and he's miserable. He doesn't want to be there. All this nonsense that he and Bob Clappish, who apparently is a renowned reporter there in the Yankee space. Again, I use these words loosely. This is what Michael had to say on his latest show just a day ago. Tell me the Mets are living rent-free in your head without telling me they're living rent-free in your head, Michael. Let's hear what you had to say.
I wonder if the people that say stuff like this are embarrassed by their stupidity. Can they look in the mirror with their tongue hanging out, breathing up against the window at their...
I would also like to preface that the stuff you're about to hear is unbelievably cringy, and all I have to say is Gary Cohen would never even get close to doing the things that this man is doing right now. Pretty fitting that Gary, Keith, and Ron continue to be the best booth in baseball, while Michael Kay gets frustrated on the fact of that reality, having to read that off in his broadcast booth every once in a while, every year, once the announcement comes in that he yet again came in second place. But let's go back to Michael and his little rant. Again, you might want earplugs, you might want to lower, you might even want to skip this because how cringy it is. It's truly unbearable just to try to get through to, let alone 3 minutes. So viewer discretion is advised.
Their visage and be proud of themselves, or do they realize that they are lying punks that are just saying stuff in order to fit their narrative?
I wonder where I've heard that one before, Michael. As someone who's been in the industry for roughly 3 decades, or 30, who knows, you'd think you'd have at least a slight grasp as to what that line finally said. And already, the hypocrisy is starting to kick in. Can't you guys tell?
That Juan Soto really has been happy all year, and Kay was wrong. Kay's not wrong. Kay's afternoon show didn't fail. How about that? A failure of 22 years. Oh, he didn't have ratings. We don't even have ratings at the station. We don't pay for them. So again, moronic, dumb, ill-informed. But if that makes you happy, if somehow I keep living rent-free in your head, where your whole purpose in life is to prove that somehow I was wrong, keep trying, baby, because my question and answer to you is, how's it working out? You think that I need to make up something and ruin a 39, 40-year career? Make up something for what? What would clicks do for me? You bunch of ill-informed nitwits.
Let me start by saying that him going on this rant about making things up, I'm not on this high horse as much saying that, oh, Michael K is making everything up straight out of his ass versus he's heard what was relayed, but instead of maybe going for second, third, fourth outside sources to suggest that that is true, that is factual, he runs away with the first thing that he hears from people that he feels are trusted within the industry. And I understand having good connections and all, but I also understanding making remarks for the sake of making remarks, specifically when you're trying to push a narrative. Furthermore, when the eyes are on you regarding one so than ever before, and the Subway Series, it's a very normal thing for someone like himself to do, the same way that naturally when the Dodgers come into town, I'm going to talk more about Shohei Ohtani. Those things are normal, absolutely. But the big difference here, Michael, and I know this has been very hard for you and your thick brain and thick skull to grasp, but let me just simplify it for you. I'm going to talk to you like you're five, as Michael Scott famously says from The Office scene. When you go out of your way to relay to hundreds of thousands of people that Juan Soto doesn't want to be a Met, and this is from people that have been relayed to you, when there's no one coming out of Mets camp, there's no one else out there whatsoever reporting such nonsense out of what is pretty much hearsay, because that's all we got from you right now is hearsay. Shame on the fans for questioning you. Shame on the fans for maybe thinking you're initially lying. Shame on the fans for not believing more than what you had to say with face value. Yet these same fans that are supposed to believe everything you say until your final breath are the same fans that are being belittled, are the same fans that do not deserve any respectful treatment whatsoever. You can't have it one side while also calling it out on the other. Again, the hypocrisy is through the roof, but let's continue on. We still got like a minute and a half of this. I apologize.
Please, get over me. I'm not worth your trouble. I'm the other...
Michael, I forgot about you already this past week plus. The only reason why I'm talking about you is because you just won't shut up.
Team's announcer. Stop. And if you don't like me, don't listen to the show, and don't, under any circumstances, take anything that I say seriously. Take it with a grain of salt.
Okay, there's something we can agree with, Michael. There is something that's 100% true. If you don't like me, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Okay, Michael, why are you not taking this same advice for yourself as someone that is so on this high horse of being a lion to these so-called fleas that are fans like myself and so many others in the community? Why not just take that for what is? Why not be the professional that you so proclaim to be and actually shut up and do your job, which is not associating yourself with the lessers, the fleas? Yet these fleas, instead of you, I don't know, getting some repellent to get them away, are laying there basking in the sun like a lion, like you so claim to be, while the millions of fleas are swarming you and you're trying to swat them away, you're trying to pick them out, and it just isn't working because it's living rent-free in your damn head. Has it figured itself out by now, Michael? Clearly it hasn't.
It's somebody that you don't respect. So don't let me live rent-free in your head, because you know why? It's an embarrassment to you and your tiny little brain.
Again, you're a complete hypocrite, but go on.
Oh, look, he's having fun. He's playing the bottle flip game. You know how silly you look? You know how much of a simpleton you look? That's your trump card? That's what you pulled out of the deck. Go, there, I'm right. Goodness gracious, you people have to stop, and you have to get a life. Why are you concentrating on me? Root for your team. Have yourself a blast. You know what? They have the best record in the National League. You should be celebrating that. Not trying to one-up Michael K. You know how small and insignificant you make yourself out to be? Losers. Every single one of you. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to give you credit and have people go to your ex follow, because that's what you want. As I said before, I don't let fleas go on the back of lions, and you're all fleas. Oh, look, everybody. Look, he's playing the bottle flip game, and he's laughing. Kay was wrong. What a bunch of clowns. Nitwit clowns. Yeah.
In all seriousness, you would think that this is a talking head on a mainstream New York media radio network, I should say, that is not the same talking head that is the play-by-play play-by-play voice for the New York Yankees. You would think that this is no different than some of the more extroverted talking heads that you guys know exactly who I'm pretty much referring to in the space in today's sports media that obviously are going to be overly emotional and overly reactionary to anything and everything having to do with their name being involved or naturally the things that they're talking about. Instead, this is the same man that has been covering the Yankees for a long period of time, and he deserves endless credit for that. No one's taking anything away from you, Michael, but the problem that you still have, Michael, is that for some odd reason, what have been the lessers in your opinion are the biggest fixture in your brain right now, greater than anything else, because this series was weeks ago, Michael, weeks ago, and you are still out here going out of your way to rant like the little bitch that you find yourself being. And I apologize again. I had to slip that up. I did not mean for that to happen, but it became a reality. Again, the fact that these things are happening when the hypocrisy is through the roof. Talk about looking in a mirror. I'm sure if he looked through one, he'd still be standing there saying to himself, "You're an absolute stud. You deserve everything. Screw those guys. You're Michael effing K." That's what I like to think when Michael K looks in the mirror, with the way that, again, just the pompousness that comes off with the arrogancy of himself, when the whole moral of this story is pretty much what he said himself. Don't take him a more than a grain of salt. So we're not going to. We're done with this. But here's the thing, Michael, even while we may try to be done with this, even while we may try to push you to the side and act like you don't exist, when it's very easy to do as a Mets fan, because we're not listening to you constantly throughout the day, I promise you. We're getting tagged through other Mets fans who are listening to all of New York sports radio, time-stamping you on a daily basis because you're letting this live rent-free in your head. And you want to talk about little brother energy. Not only is it little brother energy to be the face of the New York Yankees, yet trying to stoop down so low to these so-called fans that you view as lesser to be even worse than that. But think of this in comparison. Gary Cohen would never do such a thing. You think everyone's positive about Gary Cohen on social media? As much as I love that man to death, I promise you, he gets plenty of hate just like anyone else who's a big space in the media field. I get hate on a daily basis, and I will continue to. That's fine. You take it to a chin. Why? Because this is how you're supposed to handle New York sports. Instead, Michael isn't taking it to a chin. He's taking it to the brain. It's really hurting him so much so that the same man that represents the 27-reign New York Yankees, the 27-reign New York Yankees, a fan base that gloats on the fact that they have the most championships, that they are the best team to beat, and how we are little brother, yet that same man is going to be at Citi Field next Thursday to try and have, whether it's civil discourse or just obnoxious discourse there with Mets fans. He's going to do it obviously to get either, whether it's going to be clicks or maybe it's not going to be clicks, because he doesn't make money on clicks, everybody. Even though if Michael just saw it a little bit harder, he would make so much more money online if he just invested in the 2 seconds to actually try to do so. That's okay though. You get your bag, Michael, I'll worry about mine. But here he goes out to tweet the following: "Please come to La E next Thursday at Citi Field, as I will be part of Rick and Dave's tailgate. Love to talk with all the great fans making their way to the game. I'll be the guy, the tall guy with the long face. Color me shocked." It was going to be hard to find Michael K? Thank you for clarifying, Michael. Look forward to seeing the faces behind all the kind words. Cue the sarcasm. Cue how he's literally just trying to basically rag on you guys in person now. This is the same man who's went on north of 20 minutes total of rants over the past 2.5 to 3 weeks regarding just some outspoken Mets fans, including myself. Furthermore, my guys Mark and James, among many others there. I know we're just some of many in the community, whether they're other talking heads in the Mets space or whether they're people online, mainly on socials. That's what really gets to Michael. This is the same man that'll slide in your DMs if you say something negative about him, as he has done endlessly with people in the past. And while I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, if someone speaks on your name, you have the right to reply to that 1,000%. I think the context of everything that I just shared with you guys over the past north of 10 minutes is very important, kind of grasping as to where Michael K's mentality is at, how sad this is pretty much to see, and how it feels like that this still is not reaching its conclusion, even though it should have already been the case 2 weeks ago or so when the Mets were already out of town and out of the Bronx against the Yankees. But I digress, everybody. Final thing I'll have to say is, do you see Gary Cohen doing this? Never. And it's almost like there's a reason as to why. Now, guys, let's get into breaking our final tidbit, our final notes here. before getting out of here, and our final notes have everything to do with the New York Mets and what they are doing on the prospect front, because we have some really, really exciting prospect stuff to get into, guys. So let's waste no time and let's deep dive what exactly that is. And let's begin here, everybody, that you guys can see with Mr. Brandon Sproat, who had himself a day. Brandon Sproat, folks, in his latest AAA Syracuse outing that we saw over this past night, went 6 shutty there for Syracuse. Finally, Brandon Sproat is finding some consistency. This comes after Sproat won 5 strong innings of 2 or 3 earned run balls last outing, this time on 83 pitches, 0 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, 5 hits, 2 walks. Brandon Sproat, an absolute dog, the bulldog that he is. You love to see it, everybody. And it looks like Brandon Sproat now is finally starting to get in more of a groove at the AAA Syracuse level. Also, I got to say, love the Syracuse Mets black jerseys. If only the Mets black jerseys would look as good as those by having the white piping around the blue and separate from the orange. Why did we deviate away from that 2 years ago? I don't know. We're stupid, but that's a discussion for another day. Another Wardy tangent that's trying to get a little crazy here. But Brandon Sproat, guys, who topped out 98 on the gun there that we saw in this past night's start, one of the cleanest and best starts I've seen from him at any level there, especially Syracuse. So definitely encouraging to see. You got to hope that in the case of Brandon Sproat that this continues for someone like him, and we can be feeling good as Mets fans with these pitching prospects. But between Noel McLean, Brandon Sproat, Kristen Scott, once he gets back from reconstructive Tommy John surgery towards the end of the season, among many others, the Mets have an abundance of arms to choose from. And Brandon Sproat is trying to impact the Mets as soon as this season. Because if he does not impact the Mets this season, he is going to have to impact them as soon as potentially next year, which they have, again, a lot of talent in the farm to choose from. No doubt about that whatsoever. But guys, when we talk about talent on the farm, it doesn't just stop there with Brandon Sproat. It continues on with an absolute stud of a southpaw who has been unbelievably impressive that we've seen so far this season, especially with the way that he has dominated since being moved up there in the Mets minor leagues, guys. Let's talk about, as you guys can see in the highlights, Mr. Zach Thornton. Because Zach Thornton, what a dog this kid is, everybody. I can't get over how good he has looked. Zach Thornton, who pitched himself a perfect game, in less than perfect game innings, obviously, because he was pulled prematurely not long ago. He has been on an absolute tear right now. Another huge start for Zach Thornton, the southpaw that we're seeing there. Looking at 6.2 innings, just 1 hit, 2 walks, 1 earned run, 8 punchies on 90 pitches, a 2.13 ERA on the year. Yeah, that's pretty darn good, if you ask me. So Zach Thornton is in an absolute groove right now, everybody. And what I love so much about Zach is the fact that this is this year's version of McLean, Sproat, and Jonathan to a degree. A pitcher that didn't come out of complete nowhere this year, but unless you are a true prospect junkie, the way that I know that plenty are, especially my guys, whether it's going to be Mr. DeMeo, whether it's going to be my guy Ernest Dove, Michael Mayer, among many others there in the prospect space, because I don't want to miss anyone. I appreciate them all. They're feeling pretty darn good about what they're getting in Zach Thornton right now. And Thornton was not only impressive in the sense that he dominated, but he has a 1.53 overall on the season, mind you. The 2.13 ERA is just what he's done in Double-A since being moved up from the Cyclones. But between the Cyclones and Double-A there that we're seeing with the Rummel Ponies, he has a 1.53 ERA on the season. And over his last 5 starts now, spanning 31 innings, he's allowed just 10 hits, 3 runs, and 4 walks while striking out a whopping 34. Yeah, Zach Thornton looks unbelievable, guys, and he is just one of many Mets prospects right now that are absolutely thriving. And I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments as well in the replay down below, everybody. How are you feeling about all the Mets and their latest on the farm report? Because now, guys, let's transition into talking a bit more here on the farm report before we get out and break down and ultimately leave this video here. Thank you guys so much for hitting that like and subscribe on for our latest Big Mets update segment. As you guys can see, we had a lot to talk about today, but let's get into the Mets minor leagues, because we did see, as of yesterday there, the minor league report from a day ago started there in low A, where we saw Jose Chirinos go 4.2 scoreless innings and 7 strikeouts. Great work there in Port St. Lucie from the right-hander. We saw Irving Cota go 5.1 innings of 2 earned run ball. He looked great as well. Colin Houck, Mets shortstop infield prospect they drafted the first round 2 years ago, 2 for 4 with 2 walks. And Cervas there went 2 for 4 with 2 walks. In high A, we saw Nate Dome go 5 shutty, including 6 strikeouts. Noah Hall won 4 scoreless including 6 strikeouts, and Carson Benjamin went 1 for 3 with a walk and a double. In Double-A, we saw Zach Thornton go 6.2 that we just talked about, dominant innings. Kevin Parada is finally starting to find that swing, batting right around the Mendoza line now. A 1 for 3 game on a home run and a walk. William Lugo 1 for 3 with a home run and a hit by pitch. Jet Williams 2 for 4 with a walk, and Nick Morabito 2 for 4 with a walk as well. Luke Ritter went 1 for 3 with a double and a walk in AAA for Syracuse. Gilberto Celestino went 1 for 3 with a walk and a stolen bag. And as of this past night's minor league report, everybody, because that was from 2 nights ago, this past night is as follows. Drew Gilbert went 2 for 6 for AAA Syracuse, including a towering home run. A grand effing salami, folks, for Drew Gilbert. They tore the cover off the baseball and they decimated their opponent there for AAA Syracuse. 4 RBIs for him. Gilberto Celestino, 2 for 5 with a 4 RBIs and a walk. Luke Ritter went 4 for 4, and this one big game for him, a walk, 2 RBIs and a double. Brandon Sproat's great game. And Max Kranick in his first reliever outing there since being sent down, 1.2 shutty, 0 earned runs, 2 strikeouts. Kranick, we all know, will be back at the major league level, just like Daniel Nunez, but given the fact that they've been a little bit overly worked, especially in the case of Kranick, and a little bit more exposed in their results, and on top of it all, especially in the case of a guy like Daniel Nunez, Nunez is one of these guys that they just want to see more consistency, especially with the walk rate at the minor league level and the contact ability. Kranick will be up. It's just a matter of when, not if. Double-A Rebel Ponies. Ryan Clifford ripped a home run, one of the hardest hitters in Mets minor leagues. 1 for 4 game and a walk. DeAndre Smith, 1 for 4 with a home run and a walk. Jet Williams left the game under his own power, but did get drilled right in the head on a heater. I believe it was like 98. Not ideal at all. Thankfully, I think Jet Williams is okay. It hit him square in the helmet, so that protected all the head there, but not ideal at all. Thankfully, again, Jet Williams walked under his own power off the field yesterday, but I hope he's okay, and there's nothing to be overly concerned about there. Will Watson didn't look too great after he came in for Sean Manaea and High A Brooklyn. And Mercado won 1 for 2 with a walk, an RBI, and a double. Mercedes and Lowe won 2.2 shutty, including 6 strikeouts, and that's all she wrote, folks. So that is going to do it for our latest farm report and everything that we broke down in the latest Mets land. Thank you guys so much for smashing a like on your way in and on your way out. Hit that subscribe button as well. Let us know all your key thoughts on the latest Mets land, from Alonso to Duran to Manaea to Michael K to Brandon Sproat, Zach Thornton. Let us hear all your thoughts and comments down below. I'll see you all late night here for a post game, as long as the Mets perform well. I will be watching UFC's big main event tonight there with Sugar Sean O'Malley against Marab for the championship rematch, and that is based on the East Coast there in Newark, New Jersey at Prudential. So I'm going to be staying up late to watch not only the Mets game, but that too. So if I'm delayed at all, my post game live show as to when it starts, especially depending on the game outcome, that is exactly why. I'll see you all later. Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, no matter what, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.